What's good, AskFPers? It's your man, franchise play. My government name is Brian Mazique, and we're gonna jump right into the question of the week. It's my man Jarrod Young with the hottest one for this week, and he says he actually had a series of questions that could have got the top spot, but I chose this one. He says, should the New York Knicks trade Carmelo Anthony, and if so, who for? My answer to that is probably yes. I don't think they need Melo anymore, to be honest. They're probably a fringe playoff team right now at best in the Eastern Conference. Could potentially get in, but I think obviously they're not a championship team. Moving forward, Melo is on his last legs. Probably only has 1 or 2 more years at a high level. I think if you can trade him right now to a team who feels that they're a scorer away and add future assets as well as financial flexibility, I really like Kristaps Porzingis, and I believe in their plans right now. So I would trade him. Eric DeFurio says, do you think that my Detroit Pistons will make the playoffs this season? Detroit basketball. I do. I think Andre Drummond is an absolute monster. Reggie Jackson's a very good fit for that team. Also really like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as well as Stanley Johnson. I like Detroit. They're dangerous and definitely going to the playoffs. Jovan Radovanović says, do you think that Bogdan Bogdanović, not the one playing for the Nets, the one playing for the Nets, I believe, is Bogdan Bogdanović. Bogdan Bogdanović is also a guard, but he's playing. I think he plays in the EuroLeague. He's only 23 years old, and he's a consistent three-point shooter. Doesn't really shoot for a high percentage. He was, like you said, drafted by Phoenix at one point. I think he could be in the NBA as a spot-up shooter type of a guy. I don't think he's a starter. I think he's playing like 26 minutes a game right now for his current club and averaging about 8 points a game. Right now, I would say he's relegated to being just a shooter. Simon Torvey Sunland says, if you could redo the 2013 NBA draft, would you have Giannis Antetokounmpo going number 1? I would say you probably have to, man. If you look at that draft, it was really shaky. Anthony Bennett went number 1. I'd say the only legit challenger for Antetokounmpo for the number 1 pick would be Victor Oladipo, who went number 2 to the Magic. Nerlens Noel's in that draft. Cody Zeller, some decent player there, but Giannis is the one that looks like he has the chance to be a superstar. He's having a big-time season this year. 19 points a game, 7 rebounds, shooting 45% from three-point range, even though he's taking just under 2 per game. Still, he's doing business. So he would have to be, I would say. Has to be if you look at that draft class. Vaughn Resper Jr. says, who was a bigger legend, the Iron Sheik or Sergeant Slaughter? I never really liked Sergeant Slaughter at all. Heel, face, neither one. I thought it was always boring as I don't know what. But I would still say he's probably a bigger legend than Iron Sheik, at least as far as when they were wrestling. Like right now, Iron Sheik definitely has passed him because Iron Sheik has just blown up Twitter and the whole 9. So I don't know from that stand. It depends on when the cutoff is. But if you're just talking about their wrestling career, I think Sergeant Slaughter made an impact as a heel and as a face. And I think because of that, I think he would probably be the bigger legend as a wrestler. Vaughn Resper Jr. says, buy or sell the Undertaker from the 90s or the Undertaker from the 2000s. I would take the Undertaker from the 90s. In the 90s, I thought that initial creepy style that he had was still him at his best. The old school walking on the top rope, just the whole everything I thought he was at his best. The 2000s, we had the biker period, and that one was probably his worst period next to right now. So I would go with the 90s. Parker Nelson says, I think that's a new name. I don't think I've seen him. I welcome you to AskFP, Parker. He says, do you think that the 2015 NBA draft could go down as one of the greatest of all time? It's really too early to say that at this point, Parker. I mean, we're looking at Jahlil Okafor, looks very good. Kristaps Porzingis looks good. Emmanuel Mudiay looks good. We haven't seen D'Angelo Russell really step up yet. I think we may not see that until Kobe leaves. Some other people are playing well as well, but it's way too early. Way too early to say that right now. I mean, I'm gonna say probably not, because I don't think I see a superstar. I think it's got a lot of good players, but I don't think I see a superstar. But we don't know. Like I said, it's early. Hunter says, are we going to get a franchise series from you on 2K this year? Yeah, that is the plan. I got a whole list of just a whole order that I'm going through right now. Y'all, I'm telling you, man, the amount of planning and thought process that I try to put into what I'm going to put on my channel is crazy. I changed my mind a bunch of times. Like, just throwing this out here, I've been doing the 2K showcase, right? But I don't know if you guys been paying attention to the reviews. Probably not, but they ain't been good. So I decided I probably wasn't going to do anymore, even though I thought it was pretty cool and I had fun doing it, and it seems like the people who actually did watch it like it, but it just wasn't getting any views. And it's kind of like the time it takes to make it, I could be making something that more people like. You know what I'm saying? So it's a constant evaluation, but I say all that to say that yes, the 2K franchise series is there. In the background, I'm working on the Legends, so it's all part of the game. Ty Bud says he talking to everybody. 2K staff, explain peak start. Peak start equaling start of player incline, or peak is reached by and will hold until peak end. I felt that peak start was this is when they get to their top level. So if your peak start is at 24, he's talking about the ages. Your peak start is at 24. This is when your ratings are going to be at their top. And the peak end is when you'll see the ratings start to decline. That was my understanding of it. So if 2K staff has something different, obviously he'd be the man to say it because he's the one that created it. Ty Bud also says, during MyLeague, MyGM, can players gain badges as part of their progression or allow a bronze to go gold? I have seen players adding badges and the whole nine. I've simulated up through a bunch of seasons. I don't know if this was last year or this year. I can't even remember. But I don't. If it was last year, I don't think they would have taken it out. But if you start to simulate seasons, you'll see, guys, the amount of badges guys have will decrease, increase. So that was there before. So I'm assuming it probably still is. Eric DeFurio says, with Seth Rollins' injury, who do you think and who would you want to become the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion? #Roman. I would have to agree with you. I believe that Roman should be the champion. I think he probably should have been the champion already. But I think the crowd's rejection of him probably slowed that process down, maybe made the WWE a little tentative about doing it. But I think the time has to be now. It's got to be now. I don't think there's anybody else who has established himself enough to do it, aside from maybe Bray, But I think Roman. Hunter says, have you ever thought about FP becoming an umbrella and having other YouTubers under the name, like a label? I have absolutely thought about that. I tried it to a degree. Maybe it was sometime last year with a couple guys who I think highly of, Blessed and Miles Dawkins 24/7. I think both of those guys are really good, do really entertaining stuff. But we kind of lost contact, a little connection there. So it kind of fell by the wayside, and I hadn't been able to be as consistent as I would like to have been because being so busy. But that's definitely something I've given strong thought to. WII Breedlove says, where does Tim Duncan belong on the all-time great list? I would have to say he has to be in the top 5 to 7, in my opinion. If we're talking about just power forwards, he's probably number 1. But, just off the top of my head, I'd probably, I'd put Mike ahead of him. I'd put Kareem ahead of him. I'd put Magic ahead of him. I'd put Olajuwon ahead of him. I'd put LeBron ahead of him. That's probably about it, though. I can't think of Bird I would put ahead of him. But that'd probably be it. I can't think anybody else. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I would put Wilt ahead of him too. I probably would put that one would be kind of close, but I'd probably put Wilt ahead of him. And the only reason I hesitate is because Wilt didn't win as much as Duncan. And when you think about the fact that Wilt, how much bigger and better he was than everybody else, for him not to have won as much as Duncan is just, that makes you think. Jarrod Young, I told you he had some good questions. He says, will Kobe make the All-Star team? Just flat and simple. The only way Kobe's going to make it is if he gets voted in by the fans. So obviously he's not going to get picked as a reserve by the coaches because he's not having a great year. So if he makes it, it will be by fan voting. We'll have to wait a little bit and see how that goes. But that's going to be tough too with Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, and Steph Curry. That automatically pushes him just about out of the guards right there. So we'll see what happens with the forwards. Speaking of those two, Jarrod Young says, who is better out of Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul? This is a weird type. I've actually thought about this before. People have asked me this. I think that Russell Westbrook is a better basketball player, but I think that Chris Paul is a better point guard, if that makes any sense. So if you were asking me if I wanted to start a team, period, and then regardless of positions, who would I take, Westbrook or Paul? I'd probably take Westbrook. But if you said you got to get a point guard and you got to get the best point guard, who do you want? Somebody's going to make everybody better around him. I'd take Chris Paul. So it depends on the situation. Jarrod Young again says, how does Tristan Thompson fit in with the Cavs? Love and Mozgov are the starters, so why would they pay a bench player $16 million? Well, Tristan Thompson is an energy guy. That's what he is. He's a guy who can plug in and start at the power forward or the center spot for the Cavs if either Love or Mozgov go down, which is pretty much what he did last year. He is a guy who can be and will probably be on the floor at the end of the game in place of Mozgov. So I think sometimes we can get a little bit too caught up into positions and that sort of thing. A lot of times at the end of the game, the five best guys may be on the floor, and with some respect to position. So that's where I am with that. Jovan Radovanović says, do you think that Steph Curry, of course, will break his own 286 threes record this year? Do you see him getting more than 300? I think 300 trays is a possibility for this guy. His shooting is amazing. I think he's already the greatest shooter I've ever in the history of the NBA. Already. I don't think he has to make another three. So I think that at this point, yeah, I would. If you asked me to bet, would he break his record? Yes. And getting 300 is definitely within a possibility. It's within the realm of good logic for sure. WII Breedlove says, if the Greek Freak keeps playing like he is, will he be an all-star? I do think he is. This is similar to the question we had before, but I do think he is. But he does have some competition. I don't think he's going to be voted in as a starter. LeBron and Paul George will probably get that locked down for the forward position. But it's going to come down to how much love do coaches give Carmelo. I think that's going to be the next thing. Or if Carmelo knocks out Paul George for the voting, then obviously LeBron gets in with the. Paul George is going to get in with the coaches over Giannis. So I don't know, but I still think he probably sneaks in. But he is a guy who I could see getting snubbed. It just feels like that could happen. Ruben Ayala says, do you think that it's harder for someone that played during the steroid era to get into the Hall of Fame, even if they're free of PEDs? I think it's somewhat harder, but only if their name appeared on that list. There was a list that I forget the guy's name. I'm glad I blocked it out. But there was a guy who did the investigation, and it was some suspected people on the list, like Bagwell and a couple other guys. And if your name came up on that report, then I think it's difficult, even though if you never failed a test or if you never got proven of anything. But you look at guys like Frank Thomas, you look at guys like Pedro Martinez who played through that time period, and because their name never came up, they got through. So there it is. I appreciate y'all watching. God bless. Peace.